inspired by real-life events. Narrator Sohan grew up in a quiet, slightly overlooked corner near Rangpur, where life never felt like something shaped by ambition or rapid change, yet, but it felt like a long, continuous cycle of survival, where every day repeated the same rhythm of responsibility, effort, and silent endurance, where mornings began with the sound of distant train horns passing through thick fog, shopkeepers lifting shutters before sunrise, and footsteps slowly filling narrow village roads. Because in that place, life never paused for hesitation, and time never slowed down for uncertainty. And from childhood, Sohan understood something that was never directly spoken, but always clearly reflected in the lives around him. That dreams were not destroyed suddenly, but slowly postponed, until they quietly disappeared under responsibility. And his father worked as a small tea stall owner beside a highway where travelers came and went without remembering faces, spending long hours serving tea in glass cups under boiling kettles and endless heat, returning home with tired eyes and a silence that carried more meaning than any words ever could. While his mother maintained the emotional structure of the household through quiet discipline, carefully managing very limited income in a way that always ensured survival, even during the hardest days. And Sohan grew up inside this environment, learning early that life was not about sudden transformation but continuous adjustment. And in school, he was not exceptional or invisible, just a quiet student sitting somewhere in the middle rows, listening more than speaking, observing more than reacting, often staring outside the classroom window, where the sky felt wider than his life and the roads beyond seemed like unfinished journeys, waiting for decisions he had not yet made. And that quiet observation slowly turned into something deeper as he grew older. Not loud ambition, but a subtle dissatisfaction, with the idea that life must only revolve around repetition and survival. And after completing his studies, he reached a moment where life no longer felt like something happening around him, but something demanding a decision from within him. Because two paths appeared in front of him. At the same time, one was a stable local administrative assistant job with fixed salary, predictable routine, and social acceptance that came with safety, while the other was an uncertain opportunity in a startup in the city that offered nothing except instability, long hours, pressure, and the possibility of building something meaningful from nothing. And for many days, Sohan lived silently inside this decision because every voice around him encouraged safety. Every relative repeated the importance of stability, and every logical explanation supported a predictable life. But inside him, there was a quiet resistance that refused to disappear, not loud, not emotional, but persistent like a thought that kept returning even in silence. And one evening, he sat with his father beside the roadside tea stall, after closing hours watching the empty highway stretch under fading light. And after a long silence, he asked, "Baba, what if I choose the uncertain path and fail completely?" And his father wiped the counter slowly, looked at the distant road, and said, "You will fail many times in life, but the real failure is never trying to leave where you are stuck." And those words settled inside Sosan like something permanent. And after nights of internal struggle, doubt, and reflection, he finally made his decision to join the startup, stepping into a city environment that felt fast, unfamiliar, and unpredictable from the very beginning. Because the office was small, slightly disorganized, filled with young people trying to build something without fully understanding how, and nothing felt stable, not even direction itself. And in the beginning, Sohan tried to adapt quickly, working long hours, learning systems, observing everything carefully, trying to prove his worth through effort and consistency. But soon, he realized that effort alone does not guarantee clarity. And there were nights when he returned to his rented room completely exhausted, sitting in silence under a dim light, staring at the ceiling fan, rotating endlessly as if time itself had no destination. And during those moments, he would think about home, about his mother preparing simple meals with care, about his father serving tea under the noise of passing trucks and strangers. And a strange mixture of guilt and determination would rise inside him because every step forward in the city felt like a step away from the life he had always known. And in the startup, he met people like Farhan, Imtiaz, Sohela, Rafi, Adil Arman Danish, Saif, Hassan, Nihal, Rehan, Ayan, Naeem, Eshan, Kabir, Arif, Shihab, Samuel, Tanvir, Raihan, Adnan, Muntasir, Rohan, Farid, Zidan, Arman, Farid and others, each carrying their own invisible struggles, each trying to turn uncertainty into something meaningful. And together they formed a fragile team, held together not by stability, but by shared confusion, hope, and silent pressure. And often they would sit late at night, surrounded by unfinished ideas, whiteboards filled with half-developed strategies, and empty cups of tea that had gone cold hours ago. And Imran once said with a tired smile, "If this works, people will call us lucky, and if it fails, we will just become another forgotten attempt in someone's story." And they all laughed softly, but the silence that followed was heavier than the joke itself. And as months passed, the startup entered a difficult phase where funding delays began affecting salaries, clients became inconsistent, and pressure slowly turned into an invisible weight that followed everyone everywhere. And Sohan found himself becoming more observant, more thoughtful, speaking less but analyzing more, because he realized that in unstable environments, reaction creates chaos, but observation creates direction. And during this time, his family back home also began facing subtle difficulties, especially his father, whose health slowly weakened after years of continuous work at the tea stall under harsh conditions, though he never expressed it openly. And Sohan would call home regularly, trying to sound normal, hearing reassurances that everything was fine, not realizing that those reassurances were often meant to protect him from distraction. Until one night, everything changed when his phone rang late, and his mother's voice came through trembling and unstable, saying, "Your father collapsed at the stall today." And in that instant, everything inside Sohan froze completely, because suddenly deadlines, meetings, and ambitions felt meaningless compared to the fear of losing someone who had always been seen his silent foundation. And he rushed back home immediately, traveling through a journey that felt longer than physical distance. And when he reached the hospital and saw his father lying weak, connected to machines, breathing slowly and irregularly, Sohan felt something inside him break in a way he could not explain, because the man he had always seen as unbreakable now looked fragile, in a way he was never prepared for. And he sat beside him, holding his hand, feeling the weight of years of sacrifice inside that single touch. And his father slowly opened his eyes and said with effort, "Don't stop your life because of me. Just make it something that proves I didn't waste my life serving others." And those words entered Sohan like something permanent that could not be removed. And after days of uncertainty, his father's condition stabilized, but never fully returned to what it once was. And Sohan went back to the city, carrying a different version of himself. one that no longer saw success as ambition alone, but as responsibility. And the startup soon reached one of its most critical phases, where everything felt like it could collapse at any moment. And one rainy night, when the office was nearly empty and silence filled every corner, Sohan sat with Farhan and Imran, listening to the rain hitting the glass, like a slow reminder of uncertainty. And Farhan said quietly, "Maybe this is where most people stop." And Imran replied after a pause, "Or maybe this is where people finally understand what they are capable of." And Sohan stayed silent for a long time, feeling everything he had lived, until that moment collided inside him. The struggle, the fear, the responsibility, the memory of his father, the distance from home. And then he finally spoke slowly. "If we stop now, everything becomes only pain. But if we continue, even pain becomes part of something that builds us." And that night, they did not quit. Instead, they rebuilt everything from the ground up, rethinking strategies, restructuring, learning from mistakes, instead of avoiding them. And slowly, things began to change. Not suddenly, but gradually, like light. After a long darkness, becoming a long darkness, and years passed, with continuous effort, more aware that success is not about speed, but about endurance. And one indeswini instruction damboklid roof tight the office building, with a funny and Imran's beside him, watching the city lights stretch endlessly into the horizon. And Imran said quietly, "Dosisturik, we almost gave up many times." And Sohan replied with calm certainty, "Yes, but every time we continued, we became stronger than before." And in that moment, he understood calm and easy, that life is not to keep walking when the path becomes uncertain, and every hardship carries a lesson that only time reveals, and every choice shapes a future version of yourself. You will. And every choice shapes a future, not never falling. And as the wind moved us dandies into every fall, and the real meaning of life is choosing to rise again after every fall, but in transforming into diet, but in transforming it into direction. Because in the end, a person is not measured by the comfort they choose, but by the resilience they build. When truth stayed with him, like a quiet light disappears, and that truth big him like a quiet light, that every ending people fear is often just the beginning of finally becoming who they were always meant to be.